Hey everybody, this is Stu and David with Storehouse 310 Ventures, and this is filling the Storehouse podcast. And we are here today with our friend Alex Felice. What's up, man? How are you?
Yes.
What's up? Very good to be here. Very thankful you'd have me. Good to see you.
Yeah, man, you too. So just yesterday, right? We do a monthly mastermind call with our group, the War Room Mastermind, and we had Alex on for the War Room Mastermind talking about kind of risk mitigation because that's kind of his background in this field in the finance world. And there was just so much stuff that Alex was talking about. A lot of pertinent information for real estate investors because that's what most of us do in that group. But also there's a lot of stuff about just mindset and stuff that you could be taking advantage of right now during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we kind of wanted to really hit on that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the things, some of the gems from yesterday, one, when we were surrounded by folks trying to binge watch shows, I think we were in a group full of folks that were, Alex was challenging everybody to read, to expand your mind, to not expand your Netflix necessarily. But I never would have thought my entire life that I would be completely intrigued and captivated by a conversation about risk management. And it was completely it was a completely mind opening to me, just that different perspective, how to think about things. And Alex, you really wrapped it up very nicely. Everybody in that room, we blew right past an hour, and everybody's like, yeah, keep going, keep going. And if you would have posted, hey, we're going to talk about risk management today with Alexander Felice, that I don't know, just on the title alone, if it would have generated that much interest. But it was phenomenal. So really appreciate you doing that, sharing your knowledge, but also just highlighting the fact that there is so much out there right now, and you potentially have time to soak some of that knowledge in, and you should really be turned on to some of those topics. So we're going to talk about some of that today. So really appreciate it, Alex.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Actually, I was in that conversation and I kind of felt like, well, I feel bad because everybody who's listening to this may not be able to hear that. So now they're all jelly. But I was in that conversation. I was like, man, I can't tell if everybody cares because, like you said, it's risk mitigation. It's not that. But I'm thankful that I did get a good reception for it. So I'm glad. And I'm glad I could help. And, what you said about time management, I think a lot of people are figured out real quick that time management is more difficult than they had originally thought when they're at their job and like, I wish I just had more time, and then you realize, ooh, no, it's not a time problem. I wish I was different. I wish I had different habits. I wish I had different strengths and weaknesses. I wish I had more willpower. But time I have plenty, and still people aren't doing the things that they maybe know that they should. So I'm happy to kind of unlock some of that in people, because I live by the principle to always do what everybody else is unwilling, and it's built into my biology. I can't help it. It often manifests in as a contrarian, so I'm easy to disagree with people just because. Oh, especially when everybody agrees, then it's very easy for me to be like, nah, you're all wrong. But but I find it's the same way. It's like I've been going to the gym for 18 years now, and people are like, how do you stay in the gym? It's like, most people just won't show up, and so it drives me. And so reading is the same way. Like, I just know most people aren't going to read, and I know it is singularly the most competitive advantage that any human could possibly take, is just get in there and read difficult books. And so I know that most people won't do it, and so it just makes it very easy personally for me. So I have that as an advantage, but still, if you could find an hour, geez, like do you want to talk about that right now? Or
Yeah, I mean, so like, I mean, what comes to mind immediately for me is just discipline, right? The discipline and drive and
no,
intentionality.
no,
No?
no,
Okay.
no,
What?
no, because, well, are you disciplined? Do you
Yeah.
consider yourself disciplined? Do you
In
read as
most
much as you want
areas.
to? Because you read as much
Uh,
as you want to?
no.
So based on your assumptions, do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
here's the deal about discipline. Like, discipline is good when you're in a military setting, like we were, where somebody inflicts the discipline upon you or makes it very easy to be rewarded for your discipline. Like, then it works. And I'm not trying to downplay discipline. What I'm saying is, if everybody relied on their own individual discipline, things will fall apart, because humans just don't work that way. I don't believe, like, people just don't wake up and say, I got to get up at 5. There has to be some kind of exterior motivating factor for discipline to work. It has to fit into a larger system. Now, that being said, what will work is finding out what you like. And so people say reading, it's like, well, you'll like to read some books. So I think part of it is you have to find books that you like. And then you also, some of it is, honestly, people are creatures of habit. So if I told you, I'm like, discipline maybe, but sit on that couch or sit on your chair for an hour a day at 7 p.m. every single night for 90 days. And then, and God forbid, and that during that 9 days, you read 5 books that you really like, or 3 books that you really like, and it will be imprinted into your brain forever. And so you kind of, it's better to understand how humans actually work. Like discipline, I'm sorry to disagree, but it's like, I understand that, I understand what you're saying and it sounds good, but I don't believe that it fits into human biology. Like human nature says we're creatures, we're lazy and we're habit forming. And so if you want to create a habit that's beneficial, or if you want to do something every day that's beneficial to you, it's like, make it a habit. Like find a way to enjoy the monotony of it rather than forcing yourself to do something you're supposed to do. Now, having a larger why is certainly important, and I don't want to dismiss that at all. Because if you're just reading for the sake of reading, you're going to end up reading Harry Potter, and it's not going to be as useful. You have to find something where it challenges you and you enjoy that challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Alex. I think, and as you really kind of delve into it and think about it, Stu and I, as you know, we run a faith-based business, and one of the biggest things with our faith is that you don't have the strength and the power to do it on your own. So you're relying on that. For us, that motivation is Jesus, right? So like you're relying on the strength that you get from that to do the things that you're talking about. And I think it's awesome that you highlight that, because a lot of times, you act your way into believing. So like you said, the action into believing. So, okay, you take that 1 hour a day action on the couch, you act that way for a certain amount of time, and then eventually you're going to believe, and that's going to be a part of your life, and it's going to be the habit that you form. And that's a huge principle. And a lot of this stuff, a lot of the faith-based stuff too, is a lot of times you don't feel like doing that stuff, getting up, getting in the morning, whether it's working out, getting in the word, what are those habits are. And I think that's a great point. And what are some of those for you? Like, what are some of those key actions that have led to beliefs besides reading? Because you love self-help books, right? It's a joke for anybody not watching.
I hate self-help. Well, it's a double-edged sword, because I don't like going on these podcasts and saying I hate self-help, because it makes me, I like that I sound like a jerk, but I like that part. But 2, I don't want to discredit self-help as a whole too much, because, like How to Win Friends and Influence People was written by kind of a con artist, right? But it doesn't mean that it's not a great book, but it's not a terrible book. It's a useful book. And so I think if you're 20, 25, and you read that book, it's going to ping you in a good way. And that's useful. The problem with self-help and the Miracle Morning, like if you're lazy and you don't get up and the Miracle Morning pings you in a way that it just gets you in that way and it changes your behavior for the better, then I don't want to ever take that away from somebody. The problem with self-help is they read the Miracle Morning and they read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and they read the 10X rule. And then they get caught in this trap of self-help where that's all they read. And there's an incredibly fast diminishing return on self-help, because there's like 5 good ones and a million lousy ones. Gary Bishop wrote a book called I don't want to say it on here, How to Un-F Yourself. And it's streaming hot garbage, right? With a forceful delivery. That's all it is. And so it's my complaint with self-help is like, read 3 of them and then be done with the genre forever. But the problem is, so many of our peers want to read self-help, but they don't want to read anything challenging. They want to read things that make them feel good. But feeling good is not how you get better at the world. You have to do everything you do that makes you better is challenging. And it has to stretch you out of your comfort zone. And so people don't make the switch from self-help to difficult. Most of the books I read are like old economics, history, philosophy, sociology, anthropology, like, a lot of spirituality type stuff sometimes from a historical perspective, but difficult books, right? Generally. And I have a list of them on my website, Brokers of Choice. I have a long list of difficult books. And so my complaint with self-help is, my point about complaining with self-help is, get out of the self-help and get into something that really challenges you, because that's a very limited genre. It should awaken you. If you're in that 20 to 30 range, self-help should awaken you, and then you move on. I'm sorry, you made me rant.
Yeah, that's good, man. So, but
That's
so like
awesome.
this is a good kind of a transition to like what we kind of wanted to hit on today is, right now during this period of quarantine and social distancing and staying in your house, like for some people that's really difficult, right? But yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
some super social people out there, and for me, it's not so hard, and my family, like we kind of stay home all the time. I know for David, like they're going all the time. So it's like super difficult for them. But there are some things that we can really take advantage of right now. And one of the things that you kind of hit on in our mastermind that like really hit me that I loved was this idea of optionality. And so I wanted to kind of ask you to talk about that a little bit more and some of the stuff that we can really take advantage of now, some of the things that we can really invest in, and what really your perspective of optionality is.
Optionality is an economics term. It's a very simple idea that says if the investor makes a trade now, they have to make an initial trade, but then you're in a position where you have an unlimited upside and a very low downside. And so, I mean, it's very simple. It's how do you take trades that are low risk and high reward? I mean, that's like the dream, right? And so, but to give you some context, I didn't start with the idea that optionality, the way that I talked about it, although how do I say it? It's like I figured out along the way that it started with this. There's two things that you need to do to succeed in any single endeavor, whether it's, I've gotten good at, I'm a photographer. I don't know if you noticed in the background. And I've gotten good at that in the same way that I got in real estate, which is educate and network. Educate and network. Those are the two things. And so then I started going along and I started learning about economics. And I learned about what optionality is. And optionality started in my head, at least, with an options trader, which is like basically you can buy a stock today that says you'll sell or buy at a different price in a later date, but you have the option to, but you don't have to. And so once you buy that trade, now you pay a small premium, but you now have the option to buy or sell at whatever price you determined later now. Does that make sense? And so when the
Yep.
time comes, it's like, hey, I can make money. Now I decide to sell it. But if I don't make money, I just let it go. And so when the time comes, you have the option to take a big win or take very little loss. And so I don't stock trade. I'm not an options trader. So somebody probably out there is like, this guy is explaining it lousy. But the point, a point of that is, it's like if you read, let's see, I have one of my favorite books of the year. Here we go. Here's a very timely book, and I showed it yesterday. If you read this book, The Black Swan, the impact of the highly improbable, which like 13 years ago described coronavirus essentially, or something similar. Point is, if you read that book, it's a very low cost, but the potential reward for understanding what's in that book over time is immense. So like right now we get to this event, everybody's calling it a Black Swan event. Like, have you read the book? You should have. But I have that optionality. I can't go back and undo the book. And if I didn't need it, if nothing ever happened and I didn't need the knowledge, then the cost to having read the book is incredibly low. And so that's kind of optionality in a nutshell. And so the three things, I know I'm kind of going all over the place. So back to the original one, which is educate and network. And so I've been carrying that lesson along with me for years now. And so I basically, there's no downside to educating. There's no downside to networking, investing in people. And then the third one that I've added to that over the last year or so is content creation. And so those are my core three things that I say. If you do those three things every single day, it costs you almost nothing to invest in your education, into people, and into creating content. And the upside, especially over the long run, is, I mean, it makes real estate look like a lousy investment. It's going to be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you hit on something there that's also key, is that, I think it's that mindset piece, Alex. It's not the fact that you can explain well, the options trading, whatever. That's not the point of it. It's the fact that you were driven to take action based on a mindset that to expand your knowledge. And what it really reminds me of, as you're talking, you read a book, and if you encounter the issue, then you're prepared. If you're not, then you're just more educated. It reminds me of guys like Admiral Stavridis and our General Mattis, our former SecDef, who said things like, I've never been in a situation in combat that I hadn't already read about and knew exactly what I was going to do. And that was because anybody who knows anything about those two guys knows that they are absolutely prolific readers, and the warrior monk, right? And a lot of that was that it drove him for that education. But I think what's awesome about that, and what you said, is you're prepared for things that potentially could or could not happen, but where everybody else is in a very reactionary state, you're more able to be proactive. And then also, putting out content. I mean, it's gems, right? It's gold, because you've already read about this. And like you said, the pandemic, there's so many books out that have exactly laid this stuff out, but we just don't read them.
I'm reading World War Z right now. I started it yesterday. It is, if you do it on audio, it's got a bunch of famous people who are doing the narration. If you do an Audible, World War Z. And I'll tell you, it's a fiction book, and I generally, very rarely do I read fiction unless it's like 150 years old or better, like stuck around. But that book is terrifying in its accuracy of something that's supposedly fiction, just so you know. So that's another one. I wish I had read it earlier, because so many of the things that I've said about this pandemic were said in that book, and later they turned out to be idiots. And now I'm like, ooh, look, I could have, again, just like you're saying, I could have prevented myself from making the mistakes that somebody else has already written out and said, hey, look, don't do, this is not what you want to do, because this is going to make you sound like an idiot or make you make a bad decision. So again, every time I read a book, that I do it in reverse, right? I read a book and then I'm like, that would have helped me 3 years ago. That would have helped me 4 years ago. And so it only serves to create a fire. And I'm like, I got to get through more books, because there's so many things that I don't know still. In fact, every time I read a book, I realize how little I know.
Well, so, and one of the other things that kind of that we do, at the three of us, including other people, is that hit on at least two of the items that you're talking about. The education of the people that we're investing in on a daily basis are these mastermind groups, and these local network groups of people, and that could really even turn into some content too. But David and I were talking, I think, on another podcast about just like, for a long time, I had the mindset of, and I'm not going to invest in some expensive mastermind group or even like, the networking events, meetup events, conferences, all that kind of stuff. Educating and investing in people are huge. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
People, yeah, I don't ever invest in real estate. I only invest in people. I mean, that's how I look at it. By the time you close on the house, by the time you get the house keys, right, you had to stir up like 8 professional people to get the house deal done. A title attorney, 2 realtors, a loan broker, a seller, a property manager, a rehab. It's like, I got to get all these people to get on board with the idea before I even ever get a key. So the house, this is 100% a people game. As for your comment in terms of, there is certainly an apprehension for people to pay to be around other people. That's a very weird concept. And I wouldn't downplay anybody who's like, yeah, I'm not paying to go to a conference or paying to be in a mastermind, because I think it's a very slippery slope, and there's a lot of snakes out there. And there's also a lot of ways to waste money. And there's also, on top of all that, if everybody had good intentions, there's a really easy way to go off and spend money to make friends that don't actually make your life better. That's what, I got a buddy of mine who did, like, he spent like 80 grand going to Tony Robbins, like the big platinum program. And he's like, we flew all around the world, we hung out, but I didn't get any better at life. I just had expensive friends.
Yeah.
And so, but all that being said, I think right now, before COVID and after COVID, I think the option, the ability to pay to be around people is, the value of it is certainly going up. The good one is conferences. Like, it's hard to lose if you spend $1,000 and you go to a conference, $1,500 and you spend a weekend at a conference. It's really hard to misspend that money. Masterminds, you got to be a little more diligent, because there's no barrier to entry really for the person to set it up. So like our mastermind group, I love, but it is just Zoom chat. So somebody could just, sell a Zoom package or a weekly package, and you just want to make sure you do that right. But to your point, like, finding the correct people to spend time with is incredible. And it's not just having a big Rolodex, right? It's us meeting on a weekly basis and then going through difficult things. That's how you build relationships. It's like, who are you when the chips are down? That's who matters, right? Like, when you're winning, dude, you don't find out who people are until there's some loss, until there's some pain. You don't find out who people are. So you have to go through these things, and you have to stick by people. It's like family, right? Like, nobody really people respect their family a lot more when the grandparents start dying, and they're like, ooh, I should really appreciate the time that I have with these people, you know? And so business relationships are the same way. It's like you meet this person, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, in 10 years, we're gonna have to solve some big problem together. And I want to make sure that we've been through some small ones together to get through it. Otherwise, I'll go find somebody else. I'm rambling, I know. But
that's great, man.
it's more than just who you know and having a text message list or having a friends list on Facebook. It's like, who do you actually spend time with, listen to, learn from, and then help them solve their problems. And it's a genuine, it's not a Rolodex collection, right? It's a genuine investment in people.
Yeah, it's an actual relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's where the war room, our mastermind that we're a part of, you know, we have you talk about the people and who you invest in, and we start from the common basis of all being vets or actively serving. And so when you choose a tribe, when you choose where you expend that time, I think that's a great point, Alex, is the amount of time you spend in your why and figuring out who those people should be is almost more important than you know, jumping into these different groups, because ultimately, you know, we all come from a background of service in that group. We already have a baseline of a tribe. We already know a little bit about each other just simply based on the fact that we all wore a uniform. That's just a bond that cannot be fabricated. And when you talk about deployments, you talk about, you know, terrible chow and horrible sleeping conditions or whatever the case may be, we can relate, right? It's automatic. It's with a snap of fingers. I'm like, yeah, dude, I feel you. You already have that baseline. We've spent time in setting up that tribe, and then that networking is just very organic. So that's awesome. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, and there's very little downside to investing in people. The biggest problem with investing in people, honestly, is the accident of spending too much time investing in the wrong ones.
Right.
That's the biggest problem, which is a pretty good downside if you consider it. I mean, if you get lucky at all and you get some smart people in your circle, it's like you're gonna go really far. Jim Rohn has a quote: "You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with." It's so cliche, but it's so true. Like, just if you got somebody in your life that isn't making it better, just kick them out. Just kick them out. Just kick them out. And the other thing is, if you want to get really, I don't want to say cynical about it, but when I meet new people now, I look at them and I'm like, either I'm helping you or you're helping me, but we're all moving forward upwards. And so if you can't keep up, I'm always trying to find the next group of people to lift me up or lift them up, you know? So it's a constant battle. It's like, the problem with that quote is, you know, the average of your 5 people, it's like, what if you end up being the biggest of the 5? Now you got to go, you know what I mean? Like you got to go to the next group up. So it's a constant struggle. And so people get caught up in the, I got to find my friends, and some of it is finding friends. Some of it is finding friends. You got to grow with people. Otherwise, the best that happens is, you know, you end up growing a little bit and then everybody becomes stagnant. So you really got to spend a lot of time working on those investments, really working on people. And there's no downside. And look, it's never been easier. I Zoom chat freaking 3 times a day right now. Like, dude, right now is the time to go through and ask people. I got an idea for you. Now is the time, while everybody's at home, even the important people are at home bored. Now is the time to reach out to your heroes and ask them for a Zoom chat. Right? Somebody, like, I'm gonna try to hit it. I got Nassim Taleb. I love this guy. I wonder if I could just go on Twitter and be like, dude, will you Zoom chat with me for 30 minutes? I'm just a fanboy. You know, if you ever wanted to interview some other, or talk to somebody that you thought was, you know, popular or famous or smart or whatever the case, it's like, now's the time to grind out and then go down the list, right? I bet you could get Stu. I bet you could get, you know, I got Jay Scott coming on my little drinking show on Friday night. It's why, because I asked, you know? And so now when we're all stuck inside, there's no downside to investing in people, and there's an unlimited upside. And with Zoom, or, you know, even just texting or Facebook, it's like you can blast you could start like planting seeds for these relationships. It's not like you email somebody once and you're best friends. It's no, you email them once, you have a conversation. And then in 5 years, you might be friends with somebody. You know, you see them here and there, you go to a conference together, you talk to them here and there. It's like, those things have to build, but the upside is unlimited.
Yeah, and that's an awesome segue, man. That's, you know, you mentioned Taleb. I think you've read all his books, right?
You know, David Perret sent me a deluxe copy of Inserto. I got it yesterday, unexpectedly. Yeah,
Nice.
I have a very weird obsession with this guy's books. They pinged me in a way. that just changed me. I highly recommend them. They're good for investors, but it's something like the life philosophy matched with economics.
That's good stuff.
Mind highlighting a couple of his books?
He writes a lot of technical books, so I don't recommend those because he's genuinely a mathematician. So the non-technical books are called Incerto, and it's Fooled by Randomness, which is how people misinterpret data to an extreme degree, which is true. The second one is The Black Swan, The Effects of the Highly Improbable. The third one is a book of aphorisms. It's basically poetry. It's called The Bed of Procrustes, and it's brilliant. The fourth is Anti-Fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. It's how to invest in a world that when things actually do, when we have depressions and recessions and drops, it's how to get better from those, not how to just mitigate the losses, but how to actually get better when things go bad. And then the fifth one is Skin in the Game. But yeah, I mean, asking people to read 5 dense books about economics and the guy's a prick. He's an arrogant prick, right? So when you first start reading, everyone's like, it takes everybody about a half a book to be like, this guy's a total jerk. And then by about 30% or 40% through the first book, you're like, oh, he's a jerk, but man, he's right a lot. That's pretty good.
That's awesome, man. Well, I know that we could continue to talk on this for hours and hours. We actually did yesterday talk for 2 hours, but this is good stuff, man. I really appreciate you coming on. It just gets my brain going big time, and hopefully it can serve some value to some of our 3 listeners that we have on our podcast. But hopefully, we'll grow this thing and keep on.
You are welcome, you 3 listeners. You are welcome.
There you go. If people want to kind of get in touch with you and learn more about you and read all your stuff, where can they find you?
I run a website called brokeisachoice.com. Brokeisachoice.com. It's mostly a personal blog. I have all my deals on there. I put my numbers of my deals on the website. I'm very transparent and thorough about how I describe things. I have some mindset stuff on there. I have a lot of book content on there. I don't make any money on the website. I don't sell anything there. So if you want to come and just kind of see what I got going on, it's pretty low risk to do so. And I do video chats, although I've been doing a lot now more lately, so you can ping me if you want. But I used to do video chats on Thursday nights for free with strangers. It's a bizarre little experiment I started about 2 years ago where I just put it up on the website. I don't say that much about it. Like, hey, if you want to video chat me, here you go. And I'm booked out about every 2 weeks.
That's really
with
cool.
Strangers. It's a very fascinating thing. But now I have a lot of free time. So if you want to chat with me, you're more than welcome.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, appreciate you coming on. I know it was early morning for you. But yeah, man, this was good stuff. Dave, anything else?
I always like talking to you guys.
No, Alex, really appreciate it, buddy. Really appreciate you dropping nuggets on us, and just continue to appreciate your personality, your engagement, and the value that you bring. I know to the group, but personally to my life as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That was a good compliment. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, have a great week and go fill your storehouse.
Make it a great day.
See ya.